The harvest is ripe, but the laborers are few. Why did he use that word?
God goes to extreme measures to bring the lost to himself.
The greatest gift you will ever give this world is your intimacy with God.
The Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit are all three inside of me. I've got the power right now.
I think what Jesus really wants is people to go. I want to be the answer to Jesus' prayer request.
Welcome to the Fuel for the Harvest podcast.
When this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world, then shall the end come.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this latest episode of Fuel for the Harvest. This is Nathan.
And this is Charlie, and we're your host for today. And we are continuing the Red Flag series, and today we're talking about lack of excellence.
Lack of excellence. What an interesting topic, because I think most of us strive to be pretty excellent.
I would say sometimes.
Okay.
I don't know that we're always striving to be excellent. I think sometimes we do the bare minimum to get by.
Okay. And I think that in particular, what comes to mind when we think of excellence or lack of excellence in the Christian world is definitely how we create and produce media. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. Like Christian movies and Christian music. And although they've been getting better,
there's some good ones out there. I know there's controversy, and I see people arguing on Facebook thinking they're winning the world for Jesus by having arguments on Facebook. They're not. But
speaking of being offended,
I like the series The Chosen. I think it's done with excellence.
Yeah.
Whatever your thoughts are, I think it's done with excellence. They have dug into characters of the Bible that are mentioned in one verse, such as Mary Magdalene, whom Jesus had cast out 7 demons.
Sure.
That's one line in the Bible. We never pause and think about, what was that like?
Right.
They have half an episode on what that was like.
Sure.
What would it be like if she was demonized, and what would it look like to engage Jesus? They get into the characters. They got into the historical context. They put these things in their filming. They had excellent artistic effect and camera work. All of it was done with excellence.
Right. all of that to say, there are excellent pieces of media out there, but it seems like it's still easy to stereotype, and there's still truth to the stereotype that Christian media is not always excellent.
We haven't overturned the stone enough with enough history to prove otherwise.
Right. And with enough various things to prove otherwise. Yeah.
I recently, there was a guy who replied to one of our posts. I think it was a podcast post on our Forge social media. Just one of those naysayers of the world. And he was like, oh, Christian music sucks, basically. I think it's funny how bad Christian music is and how you guys talk about it with each other. He was basically an atheist, just commenting on our social media. And actually, yeah, he's probably right. There's a lot of crap out there with lack of excellence. There are some, we're getting better. There's some really decent stuff out there, talented musicians doing it with excellence. And there are some who are definitely lacking.
Right. And it like this is true in more than just media. Like, I don't know what your local church looks like, but I know that my local church sometimes struggles to do things with excellence. I know that at a personal level, sometimes I struggle to do things with excellence. So what is that, like, what do you think the root of that is in Christians? Because we know from Scripture that that's not supposed to be that way. We're supposed to do everything as if we're doing it unto the Lord.
Yeah, that's the verse I actually wanted to read today. Colossians 3:23. Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive your inheritance as a reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. That's who we're serving.
Right.
So I actually think that...
what is that? Colossians?
3:23.
Is that in the context of slaves working for their masters? There is one in Ephesians that's just like it, I think.
It does include that, but it's also with other relationships, husbands and wives, and children, and all of that. All of it.
I only bring it up to say, like, even in this, like, very difficult circumstance
Yeah.
where there's a lot of injustice going on potentially.
Well, let us just put a caveat here. We're not talking about American slavery and what that looked like. We're talking about 7-year servitude where people, to pay off their debts, would voluntarily put themselves into 7 years of slavery.
Right. Sometimes masters mistreated
Yes.
people, though. Like the whole point
Just
of
like
what,
CEOs today mistreat their employees at times, and we'd say that's wrong.
right. So all of that to say, even in a situation where you're in a servant relationship, even if it's a more reasonable, less unjust servant relationship, we're being called to work as if for the Lord. So
Yes.
there's this overwhelming urge and this overwhelming direction for Christians to do things with excellence, no matter the context.
And I only wanted to make that comment just to say the Bible does not support injustice and slavery.
Right.
It fights against it.
Absolutely.
Yet we're to live our lives with excellence, doing everything for the Lord. I think this is a value of somebody who labors for God's kingdom. They want everyone to see Jesus.
Yeah.
In everything they do. And if you do things sloppy, if you do things without intention, if you do things just to get by, people notice. And they probably think, well, what's the rest of your life like? Why would I want to learn anything from you if you're sloppy and just do the bare minimum to get by? If you do things with excellence, people start wanting to say, wow, like, you do things well. I like you. I want to be around you. I want to learn from you. I want to work with you.
Yeah, and I think that is probably, in my mind, also the most significant reason that we would do things with excellence, because of what it communicates to the world around us, right? Like, there's a missional reality to it, and like I want to do what you're doing, or I'm taking note of something unique about who you are. Like, there's that missional side of it, but at the same time, there is in our world, like, if you look around, people secularly want things done very well and with high degrees of excellence. And so when they look at the church and say, why are you not doing things with excellence? It's off-putting to them.
And they I don't want any Christians to be in my business if that's how they work.
Sure, exactly.
I think we have a wrong understanding of grace is one root cause of this. We do it sloppy and say, well, you're supposed to show me grace.
Oh, yeah.
Like why are you not being graceful toward me?
Yeah.
Rather than saying, wow, I've been given grace to empower me. I'm going to do the absolute best I can in everything I do because of the grace God has given me.
Right. I think it's easy to make excuses for why. Like, I could imagine that, not that any Christian filmmaker would be listening to this podcast, but if they were listening to this podcast, I would imagine that in their heart they're saying things like, well, I did do everything to the best of my abilities, but we had a tiny little budget, and it was what it was, and we did what we could with what we had, and we really did want it to be excellent, but it just came out the way it came out. And so there is that nuance, but at the same time, we have to be actively striving to go above and beyond, taking a little bit and turning it into as much as it can possibly be.
I do think that is in the big picture things like that, but also in the small picture things. There's a piece of trash on the floor.
Oh.
Do we pick it up or say,
it's not my job?
Yeah. We're going to love Jesus and love others through our actions in these ways. And I think a lot of times it comes down to a love issue.
Yeah.
This is as for the Lord, our love for him. We're serving the Lord Christ, not men.
Yeah.
And I think it's easier, we could say sometimes, to say, wow, I have an overbearing boss who's demanding that I do this with utmost excellence. I might lose my job if I don't. I understand that, because you should do it with excellence, but you might say, well, I'm doing it to please him or please her. But what happens when that relationship becomes strained, or you don't care about them, you have a better offer, or whatever, or maybe they loosen up a little bit? All of a sudden you stop doing it with excellence because you were doing it for man, and that's what this passage says. For the Lord, not for men.
Right. The
Lord is still with you. He's still asking for your best, and we realize we all have shortcomings. We fail, we mess up, we make mistakes. We're not talking about absolute perfection in everything you do. We're talking about, I am working hard for the Lord Therefore, I'm going to do and give the absolute best I can. There's this worship song that says, everything and nothing less. Lord, I give you everything and nothing less. I'm my best and my all. I'm giving him my best and my all. I'm not giving him a piece of my life. I'm giving him everything I am. It's like this. Excuse me. I imagine many of you celebrate Thanksgiving with family. Those of you who are outside the United States of America, you've probably seen it on TV or heard about Thanksgiving if you're listening to this episode, and how we have this funny holiday where we all get together
and eat a meal
and
there's turkey
stuff ourselves with turkey and potatoes and say, oh yeah, those pilgrims that we don't really remember, and we say we're thankful for some things. It's actually kind of fun. But anyway, imagine this is what happens, at least in my family. We would often get together and various family members would bring a different dish when we got together. Hey, somebody's going to bring the potatoes. Probably the host house is going to cook the turkey. Somebody else might bring stuffing. Someone might bring a dessert, a pie. Another person might bring another pie. And could you imagine like showing up to your family's house and you open up the dish you brought and it's one slice of pie? What? How are we supposed to share this? Like, we're going to pass this around and everybody take a bite? That's ridiculous. No, they expected you to bring a whole piece. And I think that... A whole pie. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
A whole dish, a whole pie. I imagine God looking at us the same way, saying, why are you only bringing me a piece of your life? Would you let me invade everything? Would you bring me everything you've got? Just like the boy in the Bible who had a few fish and a few loaves, 5 loaves and 2 fish. That's all he had. And Jesus is like, hey, we got to feed all these people. Disciples are like, oh, tell them to go get their own food. We don't have anything. And he's like, well, how about this boy here? They're like, Jesus, what's wrong with you? You think these 2 fish and 5 loaves are going to feed more than 5,000 people, maybe up to 15,000 people, because they counted the men, so their families and their kids and their wives and all this could be up to 15,000 people. We're going to feed that many? That's insane. Jesus did a miracle. He multiplied, but the boy gave everything he had. He didn't have anything else to offer. And Jesus used it, multiplied, and everybody was filled and satisfied, and they had 12 baskets left over. And I just wonder, what if we gave Jesus everything we had in every scenario, working for the Lord, not for men? What would he do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are his hands and feet in the world.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the impact could be so much more significant. So, obviously, there's this missional aspect to it of like, hey, and this evangelistic aspect to it of, hey, we're representing Jesus to the world around us. Do you think that there's any other reasons that there's this biblical demand for
I think it's
excellence?
a love aspect, how I briefly touched on.
Right.
Like it's our revealing our love for God. It's our acting out our love for Jesus.
Sure.
Just like you would show your spouse your love in action by what you do, we're revealing our love for God in our action, saying, Lord, I'm doing this for you.
Right.
Whether somebody's looking or whether they're not looking, whether they're demanding or whether they're not demanding, I want to do this for you.
Absolutely.
You've given me a job, so thank you for that. You provided all my needs, so thank you for that. I'm going to do my best.
Yep. And not try to make excuses for lesser, lower quality work.
Yeah. So I think we just need to be careful that we don't use grace as an excuse. Do we offer grace and extend grace and give mercy? Absolutely, you better believe it.
Right.
But let us not, forgive me for this, but let us not prostitute that grace.
Yeah.
And say, man, I'm just going to take advantage of it. I'm not going to do my best because you should show me grace because you're a Christian.
Sure.
Or
people have lower expectations
Yeah.
of me because this is Christian media or Christian whatever.
No,
So,
let's show everybody that actually I actually believe that some of the most brilliant people in the world are followers of Jesus and how God has used them and what they've done and what they've offered the world, the advancements they've made. Man, let's showcase that more and more. Let's see that multiplied.
absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's anything else to say about it other than, we're not advocating for workaholism here or anything like that. We're not advocating for an unhealthy view of work or anything like that. We're trying to say, if you're going to do anything, do it as for the Lord. If you're going to sweep the floor, do it with excellence. I mean, whatever it is, from the lowliest of tasks to the most important of tasks, whether it's a public or a private thing, do it as for the Lord.
Don't cut corners.
In so doing, you're revealing your love for Jesus, and you're revealing who our God is to the world. I'm reminded, before we finish up, I'm reminded of this guy living in a really restricted country in Asia, and it's illegal to proselytize and like super dangerous.
Meaning to share the gospel.
Right. It's illegal to share the gospel.
That's the legal language they use.
Yeah.
Proselytize, I don't know what that means, but they're going to put me in prison anyway.
Yeah. And so the way that they share the gospel is when people show up at their company and they work for them, they do everything with excellence. They treat these people with excellence, and they love these people with excellence, and they put out an excellent product. And eventually these workers begin to ask, hey, why are you treating us with such love? Why are you treating us with such respect? And it's in that moment, I'm telling you what, it's almost impossible to find a way to share the gospel in this place. And this is how they do it. In that moment where the worker asks, why do you treat me so well? They share the gospel. And if the worker decides to believe, amazing, and then they move on. And all of that to say, the gospel is advancing because of an attitude of excellence in this place.
And it applies to your work. It also applies to other areas of your life. How do you love your kids and interact with your family? Do it with excellence. Do it with intentionality.
Right.
How do you take care of your house? Do it with excellence. Do it with intentionality. How do you, if you're not doing it in any other area of your life, I might question how intentionally and excellently you could say you're engaging your spiritual life.
Absolutely.
Are you excellently, with intentionality, engaging the Word of God, engaging the Lord, praying? How's your health? Are you doing it with excellence, treating this as a temple of the Lord? Are you approaching every area of your life as for the Lord and not for men?
Absolutely.
Whatever you do, it says, whatever you do, do it, work heartily as for the Lord. At it.
Absolutely.
So that's what we would say.
For sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining this latest episode of Fuel for the Harvest. Don't forget to unsubscribe and resubscribe. Don't forget to take a look at the app at theforgeapp.nospaces.com. And if you have any questions or comments or anything, feel free to reach out and let us know at fuelfortheharvest@gmail.com. No spaces in any of that either.
Thank you guys for joining us for this episode. God bless.